Saturday, 19th of April, 2025 at 3:13 p.m. here in Snohomish, Washington, United States of America. Welcome once again to our cosmic journey. It is your Dev and Design podcast featuring two bonnet-wearing Easter boys making the world's best astrology software. You can see our bonnets right here. They're very cute. I am designer Jake. He is your engineer Trey. Hello, Trey.
Hello, Jake.
Welcome to what we call a mediocre Saturday, because we had Good Friday yesterday, and in Good Friday you have to be your best, right? That's, you have to be good. So you're allowed then on Saturday to be mediocre, and so Sunday is correct, nasty Sunday, right? So Good Friday, mediocre Saturday, nasty Sunday. And if you're wondering why it's called Nasty Sunday, well, I'll tell you, it's because it's called, in some traditions, Palm Sunday, and you can figure out from there what that all means. Today's
put two and two together.
Put two and two together, as it were. Today's episode is called Codexter. Dexter being clockwise, if you're into the astrology of the whole thing, but also a piece of software came out called Codex that we have had some experience with, which we're going to talk about today. But in addition to the check-in question and going through the agenda, we are going to show Trey's speed graph. We've got aspect icons for modern astrology, which is not necessarily something that Trey and I have a lot of affinity with, but we still have to create those icons. We have some lovely buttons, and we'll talk a little bit about Codex and all that AI. But before we get to that, Mr. Henry, it is your check-in question. However, I think you have a little bit of a surprise for us for this check-in.
So this is our first viewer-submitted check-in. And they have recommended that we ask the following. What books would you recommend to help someone understand how to communicate with you so you didn't have to code switch so hard?
So the books that I would suggest somebody read in order to allow them to not have to allow me to not have to code switch so much is, I think really there's one book that comes to mind that will cover 80% of the cases, and that book is called Getting Things Done by David Allen. If you read Getting Things Done by David Allen, you know exactly how to functionally communicate with me in a way that I do not need to code switch into something that feels a little bit less Saturn in Virgo in the first house. I usually have to code switch away from being so structured. It's not a book, but another thing that I do that can put people off, or that I naturally have a tendency to do that I have to kind of pull back from, is this thing called precision questioning. So if I don't understand, if we're not having a conversation about something that I feel like I can get all the details from, or that I can fully process all of the lines of thinking or understand and tease apart assumptions, I will move into this mode called precision questioning. And it's really, if you've never had it done to you, it's a Socratic method kind of on blast, and it can feel like you're on blast. I do wish that people just appreciated it more, as opposed to me being like, hey, by the way, I'm going to now do this thing called precision questioning, and I'm going to sound like a dick. I don't mean to be a dick. I just need to understand something about what you're talking about. I would say the last thing is that if you read any book, any financial planning book by either Dave Ramsey, Susie Orman, or even Elizabeth Warren, she wrote a really good one back in the day. Those are also are bangers that would help out with understanding how I communicate. Notice that all of them are all about like structure and discipline. That's kind of where my mind is at.
I think the precision questioning one too is good just for people to know, I think, generally, because I think there are situations where it really does help to create a lot of to just be like, okay, we need to ask very well-considered, precise questions and have well-considered, precise answers so that we can like get through a communication thing.
Exactly.
Then, yeah. That's
it's incredibly helpful as long as we're all on the same page. It's an incredibly useful tool.
It's just, it can be very jarring for people if it gets whipped out when they don't know it.
Right. Exactly. Because it does look like what you are doing is interrogating somebody, but you are
Right.
interrogating the thought patterns. Now, if what you do is you attach yourself too closely to your thoughts and opinions, then yes, it is interrogating you. But you need to also, something that you learn as a designer, kind of separate like your craft from yourself. Like just
Yeah.
because someone's giving you critique about your work does not mean it's a critique about you necessarily.
Yeah, and I bet you actually that anybody who has gone through like a design program or art or anything like that, where critique is like a big part of the process, is
Yeah.
probably going to be better at that because they're already at least going to have that sort of like self-hardening of like, okay, somebody's going to critique my stuff, and I'm just going to like let it wash over me,
Yeah.
and to take it personal, and then yeah, and try to get the good stuff out of it. Yeah,
I will say I've worked
yeah,
with enough designers that you would think that that was a very hardened skill, but yet still, it's a very human thing to
yeah,
just
yeah, yeah,
be
yeah.
very attached to your ideas and to take offense when, like, we even take offense when people say, I don't like the style of music that you like. Like that's somehow to do
Yeah,
with
yeah.
like your personality or your existence. Like if you are really into Taylor Swift and I'm not into Taylor Swift, it's okay. I can still like you as a person. It's absolutely fine.
No, actually, no.
No?
There are the people who like Taylor Swift, and then there are everybody that's going to hell.
Happy Easter Sunday. What about you? What are your code switching books?
Yeah, yeah. I think on the subject of code switching, the things that I think I have to code switch on the most these days are just having a magical practice of being a sorcerer. Like that's kind of like the primary code switch, which is interesting because not that long ago I would have said probably the code switch is mostly about being gay, and and like going into perhaps a new social context or something like that, and having to deal with that. But these days, it's actually, at least for me, that's not the primary code switch that I have to do really that much anymore.
Yeah, it's
And
kind of
so,
crazy that it just took one generation for that to kind of
yeah, I mean,
be
and I
released.
don't want to. Yeah, I don't want to. That's my experience, and maybe your experience as well. But I don't want to say that that's the experience for everybody because it definitely depends on where you are and what society
Correct.
you're in, culture you're in, and even within a specific culture, there's all these little pockets of, you know. Anyway, so but generally speaking, I would say for me in my context switching, I don't generally have to like put on my straight hat so that I can talk to my straight friends. Um, However, the magic and sorcery thing is definitely like that's a hard code switch, and so I think that these days I would focus primarily on. So I would say like um, Chaos Magic by Phil Hine, for example. Not because I'm a chaos magician or necessarily that I'm trying to send them down a particular road, but because Phil Hine does such a good job of kind of saying like how a sorcerer behaves or kind of like what sort of the expectations are, so that somebody who maybe even if they just read like the first couple of chapters of that, they would probably have a little bit better idea of like, okay, like I kind of get where this person's coming from, and so like that kind of bolts on I think a little bit easier.
It's a delightful read. I
Yeah, yeah, it's a
I
great
can't
book because
recommend
it's
it
it
enough.
it's very yeah, it's very practical, and it's also yeah, it has this kind of like a lot of this sort of like meta topic of like, yeah, how to be in the world as
Yeah.
somebody who has kind of like a magical practice.
One of the great things
um
about chapter one of that book is that he goes out of his way, Phil Hine, to say, look, what someone's magical practice is none of your it's not none of your business. You can learn from a lot of different things, and magic exists in a lot of different ways. And why does it affect you so much that like why do you have to have a pedantic argument about like what is the right magic and what is the wrong
right,
magic? And I was like,
yeah.
we can apply that to literally everything in life, including Taylor Swift. Including Taylor Swift. No
I know
one
I made
no
that
one
sound
has to
like
go to
I'm a
hell.
super Swifty, but I'm actually not.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
she's cool.
I like that you're code switching as a super Swifty right now for our audience. She's cool. I'll grant you that. I'll grant
Yeah,
you that. Are there
yeah.
any other
Oh,
books, Mr. Henry?
I think the only other one that I might also like throw in that mix there would be the happiness hypothesis, because I think it does so much of how I approach the world as somebody who whose perspective of the world is primarily the same as everybody else's, but then there's like this small sliver which is like very outside of the norm. But it's a very good book for describing that, that like in social context you kind of have, you have this, most of society kind of operates on this sort of like 2D grid of like how you interact with your peers or with your social group or whatever. But there's actually this kind of like elevation access, which is provided by, sort of spirituality and things like that. And I would definitely put like magical practice in there. Oh, Jonathan Haidt. Yeah.
Jonathan Haidt. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonderful book.
Yeah, really good book. Although I'm reading right now The Cholesterol Myth, which I'm like also now super into because I'm like, oh my God, statins are a total conspiracy.
This is not a statin conspiracy podcast, and therefore we're going to just leave that on the table. But good check-in, everyone. I really appreciate that. Mr.
Yeah, thank you, viewer, for the question too.
Any viewer that wants to give us a question, I agree wholeheartedly, in fact, with Trey. Submit your questions, not that way, over here to hello@cosmic.plumbing. Or you can, of course, reply to this video, put your questions in there. We would be glad to read them on the air and answer them for you because, as one of our viewers said, it's literally the only part of your podcast that I watch. So, okay. I appreciate that. I appreciate that level
also,
of honesty.
We should be clear that just because you asked, just because you put forward a question doesn't mean that we will actually use it. Because
it's not an AMA. You can't ask us anything.
Yeah, no.
But if you did want to ask us about gay code switching, that'd be fine. I'd answer a question about that. We could talk a little bit about like what gay code switching looks like. We'll answer.
Do you feel like you could gay code switch?
I certainly have in the past, and I know what it feels like and what I have had to do in the past for it.
Yeah.
Good checking, everybody. But what we're going to do now is do some demos. Mr. Henry, let's go to you and talk a little bit about the speed graph.
Yeah. So we re-implemented the speed graph, or let's say moved the speed graph over, because really a lot of it was copy and paste. I forgot how much stuff we had to do in order to get this speed graph to work correctly. And so it ended up being a fair amount of work, actually, because, for example, there's all of the data for what is when is something slow, what is its slowest speed, what is its fastest speed. So there was a bunch of that stuff that needed to get pulled over. Then there was, of course, the sort of secondary call to say, because you're not just passing some values to the speed graph, you're also saying, and also get the value for the speed value for this planet tomorrow, so that we know whether or not it's speeding up or slowing down. Anyway, so there was a lot of background work that had to happen there. But of course, Storybook is amazing and really helped us to implement this thing, or pull that stuff over. I don't want to say implement because it was already implemented. It's just getting it working within the new platform.
No, a different tool helped us to implement things, which we're going to talk about at the end of this episode. But back to you.
This works as expected. So when the like if you have the moon here, which need to give her an actual speed that's in her range. So this stuff works just like it did at Cosmic. And then we have
when you say at Cosmic, what you mean is the old repo, the Elixir repo.
Yes, exactly.
The company is still called Cosmic, but we have a new repo that's called Neue Cosmique. That's what Trey meant.
Yeah, exactly. So then here we have so when the speed graph data is updated, which is what I'm doing when I change the speed value, it is, of course, automatically reactively updating the graph itself based on that data. And you can see here that when I go from, let's say, 0.9 to 1.9, that the arrow is moving to the other side, because I think Mercury is like right around 0.9 something speed-wise, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so, and then we have like the whole. This was part of the tricky thing, is that we actually do this, and I'm sure we talked about this in a prior video from the old platform, but we do a we have a sort of two color stops, and then we pick this color as a lerped gradient of those two end colors.
Yeah, a lerp
So
is a oh
a linear interpolation, or
interp
sorry, a linear interpolation.
interpolation. That's I was like, it's not
Yeah,
interpretation, it's interpolation. Yes.
I can interpret however I want.
We are doing a linear
Um,
interpretation of your speaking. You are speaking linearly, and we are interpreting what you're saying. An interpolation helps to,
I never really, my Mercury is far too
yeah,
harassed
far
for
too
that to ever be the
harassed,
case.
debilitated to heck. You can see up there Trey talking the last time about his debilitated Mercury.
Yeah, it's a mess. But anyway, yeah. So this is in now, which is very exciting, and we are now I was going to say unhooked.
Unencumbered.
We are now unhinged.
We are unhinged. 100%.
To do the point placement details. We now have, I think, everything that we need in order to
And hey,
do the same implementation that we had.
if we actually have more than just what we had before in order to do the implementation. We also have the thing that's going to sit at the top, which is the
the ring card.
point. The ring card, the short form of the ring card. You will
Right,
also
which we
see
showed
that,
last week.
and yeah, exactly. You can see that up there. Maybe 2 weeks ago. I don't remember when we showed that.
I think it was last week.
We'll find out. It'll be up there. Up there. But you will. The thing is that whatever's not assembled in there will do. That's how this works. So we are going to get it together. Swear to God. Let's talk a little bit about aspects for a second. So, as previously talked about, when you go to a point placement detail, so you click on a point, you will see the right-hand panel. As Trey said, there will be a bunch of details in there about that point placement. One of the details that needs to be in there are the aspects that point placement makes to other points. And those aspects can be traditional aspects such as sextile, trine, squares, conjunctions, oppositions, but also could be things of a more modern take, such as noviles or inconjuncts, which has a different name in modern, but I can't remember the name of it right now. Sesquiquadrates, things like that. We're not looking at your screen right now. Let me go back to it. So what Trey is showing now, sorry, Trey was following along and putting all these in while not looking at his screen. What you can see over here, no, you had no idea. What you can see over here now are the card that will sit within point placement for the aspects for that point placement. And what you're seeing here is the quincunx, which is also called the inconjunct in traditional. So there's different ones. This one goes like this, and also there's another one that goes like that, which if I was looking at that list, I could do it.
Semisextile.
Yeah, the semisextile. There you go. And then if you want to look at the sesquiquadrate, it's my favorite to say. I hate this icon because what it's supposed to do is supposed to say it's 90 plus 45. And sometimes it's like the 45 degree with the 90 degree, but it looks so awful. This is kind of the standard way of doing it. I get of like putting the square with the thing down. Anyways.
It looks like a little face.
It does. Here, let me get on your full screen. Hold on. Let me do your full screen. Let me do your full screen because I need to zoom in on this. Give it different faces. It's got a runny nose. Oh, that's a little pig nose.
This is the sleepy one.
That's the. Oh. That's the back nose.
Yeah.
Otherwise known as the butthole. That's a nice nose.
Not sure what that one is.
Okay, so stop here for a second. So this is a completely custom icon that I created because there was no good icon within the kind of corpus of aspect icons that are in the world to present what a novile is. But if you can go to a septile for a second.
He's got a
So
black eye.
yes, go to a subtile. I know how much you're playing. I love it. I love that you're playing with
Sorry.
this. Go to a subtile for a second. So you'll see here the
Uh,
subtile is going to be 7 lines
Subtitle.
where the top
Right.
line is not shown. If you go to a sextile, this makes sense. So sextile will look like that,
That.
right? So then if you go to septile,
Which looks like that.
it's
Sorry.
alphabetical. That's fine. And then is there an octile in there? No, I didn't put an octile. So you put a novile in. So
It's
novile,
not. It's not alphabetical.
it's not? It should be.
No.
No, well, that was my fault. I meant to make it alphabetical. There you go. And the nice thing about the novile, and if I can be so kind as to zoom in on it, the nice thing I like about the novile here is that I think it looks. No, you. Oh, that's fine. It is
Oh,
that
sorry.
because I zoom in. Yeah, okay. The reason I'm yelling at Trey is because sometimes I zoom in on post, and if you make any movements, I can't zoom in on post. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So the novile here, I'll do it again. The novile, I think, looks a lot like a dandelion head, and I think that's just super cute.
Oh yeah.
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 That's
There's like a
the,
little line down here.
oh, that is the owl face. The sun with the novile of the sun. If we lived in a galaxy that had 2 suns, you could have the owl
Yeah.
face configuration. That's something that we lose out on. Next, what we're going to talk about is the lovely buttons. Can you show the
Oh,
lovely buttons?
yes.
So as you can see here, this all of the buttons now are inside of like the new system, so they've been migrated over. The thing that I'm most excited about, and Trey can show this, it's going to be a little bit broken. If you go to the all types page on the left hand side, what you can see here is that and let me zoom in on it. So I'm going to go here. What you can see here is that the disabled states now look like the base states. So the purple button is
Yeah.
either like lit up or it's kind of dim. And actually, one of the things I was doing, if you go back to the in page, so just turn on or off this button. It looks like a light going on or off. So if you just, I love it. And if you
It looks so cool.
and now change it to red if you don't mind, and then do that one. It looks
Yeah.
so good. Like it looks like just the light went out, and I love that.
Yeah.
Gold, I think, looks pretty fantastic as well. And
Yep.
that exists, that kind of light turning off thing exists with all of our different different styles. The thing about Stellar Light is that the background is incorrect on Stellar Light. So
Right.
it's a
Yeah.
little too white right now. But if you just look at the button here, Simple
Yeah.
Light will
Oh, yeah.
just take away the. There you go.
Gradient.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I was just
I
going to
know
do the simple light.
that looks, yeah, and there's no gradient there. But
There's
it's
no
still,
drop shadow.
and there's no drop shadow. There's no gradient, no drop shadow.
Yeah.
It's very simple.
Yeah.
The once the full assembly of what Stellar Light is going to look like is in, I think this is going to look a lot better, and we'll make it adjust it. I just know that on white it looks a little ugh right now.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah. Oh, and then that arrow moves. Yeah, we've done that before. Showed that. That
Yep.
button used to do this weird like movement thing. I fixed that this morning, so good on me.
Yeah. Good job on that one.
Thank
I
you.
noticed that the speed graph which we were showing earlier, when you go to this is not styled for anything yet.
Yeah, I got to
Uh,
style that.
yeah. But if we show it in Stellar Dark, like looks great here. But if you show it here, you can see that it's actually not sitting correctly inside of its container.
Mm,
So this is something that I get to fix
yeah,
sometime soon.
yeah.
We also have done a much better job at this documentation now too. So we actually link to the design documentation in
Oh
Notion,
yeah.
and
Can
that
you click on that?
Notion. Yeah, because I think I'm sharing this whole window. Yeah.
Yeah. So what
Yeah.
we're
There you go.
showing here, and this is a very OOUX thing, is the speed graph is made up of attributes that either be metadata or core content that sits on objects. And what we show here is that the speed graph is the way in which we communicate those pieces of metadata on those objects to our members. These are these are straight from Figma. What's happening here? There's a lot of experimentation that happened here. You might remember from
Yeah.
past episodes that we actually implemented it that way, and we had problems with that implementation because
Yeah, this implementation was not that
it
great,
doesn't
but the little
work.
dot works. The little dot works
The little
works
dot
well.
works,
We did backfill the design
and you can see
because there's
that
no reason to.
no, exactly. Our source of truth is Storybook.
The
You
code.
can see is the code. You can see that last one there. Here, let me zoom in on your screen. So if I do that, you can see on that last one there. That one has the kind of like the poopy pellets coming out of the dot. What it's supposed to show you is the velocity. So is it speeding up or slowing down? It's there to replace the arrow one day,
Right. Yeah.
which we're very excited about as well. But we're not
Yeah.
doing
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
for M1. Something we're going
Nope.
to do later. Let's talk a little bit about so we got a lot done, and
Yes.
we've gotten a lot done now for 2 cycles. I will say that this
Yeah.
cycle was the first cycle where OpenAI created a piece of software called Codex that can look at your repository and help you write code together. I have used Codex to create that aspect thing. I literally gave the LLM the picture of the design,
Mm-hmm.
and she created the basic structure, not only the storybook story, but also the component within that
The
sits
React
within story,
component.
the React component that sits
Yeah.
within, and she got it about 80% of the way there, and it was really just me adjusting it, which is kind of amazing that I can create a design and say, this is my design system, take a look at this, take a look at my code base, take a look at this design, now create this for me. And she did basically the right thing about to 80%, and then it was me just massaging and adjusting it to make sure that it made perfect sense.
Yeah. The thing that makes Codex so interesting, I think, and different than what I've seen from anybody else that's in the sort of AI and machine learning space, is that it runs within the terminal. So it's a command line interface into OpenAI's models. And the really great thing about this is that it can run commands on your terminal. So it has access to run commands like sed, which it runs a lot of, or grep, or things like this that it can use to. So it not only has access to the whole code base, but it's able to operate on the code in the same way that you would in your terminal. And it will ask you like, are you okay with me doing this? Are you okay with me doing this? And as long as you're using version control, obviously, you can make sure that all that stuff, it should go through the same process as anything else, right? Like it goes through a code review. We now, because now Jake has put on his engineering hat a little bit more, we have, been doing pull requests back and forth and doing code reviews. And so it's not like anything gets blind checked in.
Correct.
But that ability to just like pop up this command line tool and say, hey, is there any bugs with it? Or like one of the things that I asked it early on was in Logos, our sort of middle logic layer, which is shared between the back end and the front end. What's our code coverage? Like, how well have I done on code coverage? Because I've been trying to do, close to 100% if I could. Not only did it give me an answer, but told me that,
It taught you the tool.
yeah, Node actually, because we use the Node.js like sort of default test runner for all the stuff that's in Logos, and I was like, oh, they have an experimental code coverage tool. It's marked as experimental, but you can try it out here. And
That's
so
great.
now we could just run that, and I didn't even know that was a thing. So
Yeah.
that's
It's amazing.
So it's been a good collaboration. Yeah, I really like this idea of running it in the command line, because if you run it in your IDE, which is what almost everybody else is doing right now. So like, what's Microsoft's thing called?
Oh, the Copilot.
Copilot.
And
Copilot.
then there's the other one that GitHub does, which I can't remember the little thing. Anyways, but yeah, just Copilot.
But they run. Yeah, they either run within a specific tool or they run within the IDE, and that's cool as well. But when it's running within the IDE, it doesn't necessarily have the ability to run terminal commands to do the kinds of stuff that gives it a lot more oomph.
Yeah.
Essentially.
And And I remember when I was a kid, one of the big things that was having people wring their hands, educators, scholars, others, was things like word processors that have spell checks means that now we don't know how to spell words. And this was the thing that everyone said. Now, if you have a machine that teaches you how to spell words, you will lose the ability to spell things. And I thought, even as a kid, I was like, well, actually, getting immediate feedback about what is working and what is not working with your spelling helps you to retain better like how to spell things. So now I know the difference between desert and dessert, and how many T's does, whatever word have, or whatever. Anyways, you get that immediate feedback, you learn what the correct word is, and then you change it. And it's not about replacing things out of your mind. It is about kind of reinforcing learning at the moment when you need some coaching. And that's what I feel like LLMs for coding has also been for us, which is, let me teach you something about how you might want to structure this code a little bit better so that you can be a better coder later. Because she was making some really good suggestions on how to structure the button stuff that I did in a way that Trey and I did not know how to program. That was really nice, that made it actually incredibly elegant. And now I've learned something from this. So for as much as we want to say that AI is, depending on how dramatic you want to be, AI is the end of humanity, AI is the end of coding jobs, AI is the end of design jobs, or it is a coach and a helper to reinforce for you the best practices that the world has done at the point that you need them. And you can now take that and learn and grow from that. That might be a very Saturn and Virgo in the first house way of thinking about this, because I love discipline, that. But it is a design principle. It is what Sophia Prater would call an ancient truth, that you would give somebody the learning when they are receptive to learning it. Like, that's the way you want to do it. And learning coding and then applying coding is one way to kind of the traditional way we've learned. Or what you can do instead is, I need some coaching and help on this, and I'm going to learn as we go along, as we build something, which feels a lot more pedagogical.
Like a collaboration.
Yeah, it feels more functionally pedagogical to me.
Yeah, I think in a way, now we have the two of us sort of over the last at least couple of cycles. We've both been sort of mostly doing engineering, I would say. But generally speaking, it's just me doing the engineering. And I brought this up before, where it's not only kind of lonely to be the only engineer, but also you sort of stagnate in your skills to some extent, because you don't spend as much time getting exposed to new things. You just rely on what you know so that you could be productive and have high velocity. And this is one of the things that working with like an LLM as kind of like a collaborator or like a coworker is great, because as you said, like there have been several things that have come up that was like, I didn't even know that was a thing, or like, this is clearly a better way. Like, yes, pass the parameters as like, using the spread operator, it works fine.
Amazing.
Stuff like that, where it's the best, I think the most I've learned throughout my career is when I worked on really great teams with very functional, high velocity software engineers, where I was able to see what they were doing and then and learn from that. And it feels like with Codex, you kind of have, it's not quite exactly the same, but it is a little bit like having another coworker.
Yeah,
in a way.
There's coworker 3 right there. There he is. What should the good viewer do here on this beautiful Easter weekend if they celebrate that? May I make a suggestion?
I was going to say pressure wash the sidewalks, which is what my dad's been doing all day.
Okay. Pressure wash the sidewalk. Wait until Monday when all the Easter candy goes on sale, because the sugar comes at a good price. Be well, take care. Don't eat too much Easter candy, or do what
sugar causes a lot of inflammation and cholesterol.
Sugar
See the cholesterol myth.
Everything is going to be about cholesterol from now on. Just note that this whole podcast is now a anti-cholesterol or a pro-cholesterol. It's an anti-statin podcast. Be well, take care. We hope you had a lovely week, and we're going to see you again next week, and we love you very much. Take care, and goodbye.
Bye.